Hello, my name is Dan Piscopo. Today I'll be talking with Tony Piscopo about his business, Sunshine State Appraisals. How you doing?
Doing very well. Good morning to you.
Alrighty. And just to clarify, your name is Tony Piscopo and your business is Sunshine State Appraisals?
Correct. I am a certified residential appraiser with the state of Florida. My licensing is under Anthony V. Piscopo. So even though I'm Tony, everything I sign has Anthony V. Piscopo on it.
Alright. Now, what exactly is a real estate appraiser? What do you do exactly?
Many times, a majority of our work, the bank wants to make a lending decision on a particular property. And that lending decision is based on how much that home is worth. I'm the gentleman that comes in and assigns an opinion of value on the subject, being the home that they want to loan against. There's also some private appraisal work that's for divorce situations or probate or estate planning, but mostly it's all Fannie Mae work that's eventually going to be sold on the secondary market. You need a mortgage, you need a refinance, you need equity. That's where my services come in.
Alrighty. Now, when did you become an appraiser?
I became a trainee in 2001, and after 2 years of functioning as a trainee, I became a certified appraiser with the state of Florida.
Now, why appraising? Why not any other business?
During that time frame, there was a lot of opportunities that were going to offer more of an unlimited income stream, unlimited within a certain parameters. Real estate was really booming and percolating and popping, and it seemed like a place that it was an easy startup. It took a minimal amount of training. It took a minimal amount of assets to run your business. We had people in the business that were going to be able to afford me the training that I needed to proceed, and it just made sense as a, hey, let's take a shot at this. And it seemed that over time it was exactly what we wanted to do moving forward.
Alright, now to get more into the nitty gritty of things, how did you come up with the name Sunshine State Appraisals?
We're in the Sunshine State, and nobody had claimed Sunshine State Appraisals. There was a Sunshine State Appraisers, but when you take a look at SunBiz and Department of Business Regulations, that name was still available, so we scooped it up, and we thought it really defined our location, our market area. No more complicated than that.
Now, did you ever have to trademark or copyright it?
No. The only thing we have is within the state of Florida. No one else can use Sunshine State Appraisals. Outside of that, I don't know if there's other places around the country that are still using that name, but we're good. We did not need to get any more complicated than registering with the state.
Now, did you ever have to get a fictitious business permit?
No, we did not. If I'm understanding the question, we did not need to get what you described, a fictitious business permit. We do have licensing that we have. We are licensed with the state of Florida. We do run a business out of our home, as many appraisers do. But as you described, no.
Okay. Now, what type of ownership type do you have over your business?
We have an S corp.
S corp.
Yeah.
Alrighty. And do you consider yourself an independent contractor?
Yes, for the most part, yes.
And you are under the professional service corporations?
I would say so. We're certified professional. We have all the ancillary memberships that go along with having a professional community. Appraisal Foundation and different governing bodies that make sure that you're performing ethically and within the scope of public trust.
All right. Now, were there any licenses, either federal or state or even local, that you had to get in order to appraise?
I think I could say there's about 4 things that we needed to accomplish. You needed to become a trainee, and then you needed to sit and take the test for a certified appraiser, and that is with the state of Florida. You do need to maintain your licensing with 30 hours a year. 30 hours every 2 years of a continuing education. In order to do our business, we need to have specific software to write up this financial document, which is called a real estate appraisal, of course. With that, you just can't send an appraisal in most of the time if it's going to be a Fannie Mae product or Freddie Mac or any of the secondary lenders that eventually are going to buy this product. It needs to go in a program that is going to be encrypted and it can be sent through different formats to the lenders and to the secondary market. We need to be part of a realty group. So we are part of a Realtors Association. Underneath, the reason why we have to be part of a Realtors Association is because we need access to MLS. So now we need to be part of an MLS, a local MLS, multiple listing service. So all that just to do this business. Now, if I'm doing appraisals on a personal level for lawyers or, as I had described before, for probate or for divorce situations or estate planning, I may not need all of that membership, but you got to take a look at where your market is and where you can generate the best income stream. So we're ready for bear. We're everywhere you can be licensed. We are.
All right. Now I've noticed that you didn't really hire any employees. Is there a reason why you didn't hire anybody?
At some point we did have employees, but after 2008 you had the legislation that came down that sort of put a firewall between the appraisers and the lenders directly. And that firewall is called an appraisal management company. So we mostly can't speak directly with banks. In the short of it, it was felt that the appraisers were at some point influenced by the pressures of dealing with a lender, and that may have contributed to the whole financial debacle of 2008. I could speak for hours on that, on how I think they're totally wrong. But now we have appraisal management companies. And the appraisal management companies, more specifically, don't assign work to an appraisal company. They tend to assign work specifically to the appraiser themselves. So you may have a company, and that a company may have the umbrella benefit of working all through the same MLS or working through the same marketing scheme. But eventually, it's assigned to one appraiser. And most appraisers will say, well, all that other information, all that other structure that I need, I'll just do myself. Because once it's set up, you're now working through that, the benefits of what I had just described. So that's one of the reasons why we're mostly mom and pop operations now. You can bring trainees on, but there's really not a lot of trainees in the market right now, mostly because there's not enough work to be had in some instances for a person with only a trainee designation. The banks decided, we want certified appraisers. We don't want trainees, and all the trainee is going to do is sit there and help you construct files. And it's not something that is a benefit now. Maybe later, when a trainee can actually generate their own work and have it oversaw by a supervisor, but for right now, no, it's a solo operation with maybe a little support from one individual with inputting and administrative record keeping, and maybe follow up with the clients to sit there and give them the indication of how far along their appraisal is in the pipeline for being completed.
So it's not really a easy business to really get into.
At this particular time, it is not. When I got into this business, it was like 75 hours of class as a trainee. Then you did 2,000 hours, which equated to about 2 years as a trainee. And then you could sit for your test, which was 100 questions, and it wasn't that difficult. Well, then there became too many appraisers, and they really tightened the requirements that were necessary to become an appraiser. Currently, I would think the test that you need to take is a 28% passing rate, with the average people taking it four times if they even do pass it. It's an extremely difficult process, You need a 4-year degree. They were moving forward to the 4-year degree had to be in real estate. I do carry a 4-year degree, but when I started out, all you needed to have was a GED. Totally different requirements. So the overall population of appraisers is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Incidentally, the highest concentration of appraisers in the country is Dade, Broward, Palm Beach County. And not as fortunate as the people out there in California, because in the law of supply and demand, they are commanding higher fees because there's less appraisers to do the work. And it's pretty handy when you can say, I'm going to push away work, or I'm going to command a higher fee, and the client's saying, yeah, sure, just get the appraisal done. Here, we don't have that luxury in the same level.
All right. Now, to get back to more the starting up, were there any types of insurance you had to get in order to start up, or to even just to maintain?
Well, in order for the lenders to do business with you, they do require you to have an E&O insurance, which is called errors and omissions. And many times in the appraisal industry, and it's always said you cannot put together a perfect appraisal. I mean, there's so many bits of data that you need to pay attention to, and it's admitted we strive for perfection, and if we hit it, great, right? Are some of the limiting bits that we have within our appraisal, does it really affect the opinion and value that much? No, you can have an error, you can have an omission, it's really going to affect nothing of the opinion and value. But you have $500,000, you have $1 million policy, and essentially we put together appraisals so that if everything goes south, the banks have somebody to sue. And since we don't have deep enough pockets as appraisers, this is why we carry the insurance, so that, it's a callous way of looking at it, but that's exactly the way they do it.
Now, being in Florida, and for the last couple of years, we've had Dorian, which was very close to hitting you guys, and we also had Irma, which came by. Do you have any business interruption insurance or any kind of protocol in case works out for, let's say, a month or two?
We do not. Now, with that said, you're talking more specifically a catastrophic event that limits our income. There's a couple of things that we do as business owners. I do have a process service license. In other words, you've been served. It is something that I have picked up, and when it gets very slow in the real estate market, I have another source of income, which is relatively consistent. All right. I mean, process serving can be a dirty, dangerous side job, but most of it is, they know you're coming, they know you're giving them the paper, and they say hi and they say thank you when you're done. Another option that I've had in the events in lieu of insurance for these downtimes is I have functioned as a FEMA home inspection during catastrophic loss events. What does that mean? You have a hurricane. FEMA comes in. FEMA does a bunch of home inspections. They need home inspectors. FEMA has a certain amount of home inspectors that run around with a permanent pad, as it's described. And these people will work 9, 10, 12 months out of the year, and they'll go to wherever the disaster, the FEMA declaration is called, and that's what they do. Well, then they also hire some FEMA people that are local to that market area that suffered a catastrophic event. During slow times, I have gone and functioned as a FEMA home inspector, and I think possibly I may have to do it again. Do I really take a cut in my income? Surprisingly, you can make a decent amount of income doing the FEMA work, and the rough part of it is you're away from your family and you're away from your support group. You're working on the road. The trick to it is you're no longer actively building, growing your business of the appraisal industry. So I do this business with my wife, so if I'm not here, she's actually maintaining the minimum that we need to keep on the radar for our clients, to give them the service that they need. That is our insurance.
All right. Now, when starting up, did you have an attorney to help you out with anything, or was it just you guys?
No, we didn't seek a lot of legal counsel. We had people that have already navigated through the startups of this particular industry, so we kind of leaned on their experience, and we didn't have any counsel.
Now, do you have a code of conduct that you follow personally, or that is followed by the entire state of Florida for any appraisers?
Well, nationally, through the Appraisal Foundation, there is a set of ethics that is called USPAP, and it's Uniform Standards for Appraisers. And it really just describes how you're supposed to act as an appraiser within the scope of its foundation. And every 2 years, we go through another 7-hour class on USPAP, and it gets in the fabric of who you are, and it's part of what Sunshine State Appraisals tries to maintain in the way it does business.
Right. And being that we're in Florida, does location matter?
Yes, it does. Location is such a broad question.
Like, is there a reason why you chose Jupiter, Florida instead of Miami-Dade or Ocala?
Well, I started in Miami-Dade, and short story of it is a Spanish-speaking county, and even though many people do speak English, sometimes they like completing the business transaction in Spanish, and it was just an extra obstacle for me to overcome doing business in Miami. We actually went to Orlando for a little while. We enjoyed that experience. Being appraisers within the income, the affordability index that we represent, we can almost live anywhere and do our services. We took a look at the demographics, and we realized that Jupiter, Florida was a wonderful place to live. We enjoy being in the acreage area of Jupiter, and this is why we made our purchase here. We're close proximity to I-95 and the Florida Turnpike. We can go north or south with great quickness due to the highway system we have going here. We have a large population in the St. Lucie area. On the specific scope of knowledge based on location, we know waterfront. We understand equestrian communities and equestrian homes and equestrian amenities. We understand the working within the HOA association, working with the condo associations, and how they affect the marketability of a home. And now you say, okay, this is location. Well, there's some places where there's not a large scope of knowledge that you have to work out. There's some places where location means you need to understand acreage. But here's a funny part about this business. 2 times within this industry of living out west in Jupiter Farms, the industry shifted to a proximity knowledge understanding. And what I mean is this. At one point, the appraisal industry is price driven. You got to have that best price. Another time, it's service driven. We need those appraisals quick. Okay? Sometimes it's proximity driven. And what they say is, we want appraisers that are within 25 miles or within the same county of the subject that we're appraising. Which automatically makes me dumb if the subject I am going to appraise is 26 miles. And it can really affect your business. We have had moments where our business has dropped by 40% overnight because this is what they said was now the most important part. Now, we live 4 miles from a county line, which would make that other county not desirable, according to some lenders. We live out west in acreage, which makes it those extra 9 miles it takes to get to the highway. It makes us ignorant based on their proximity rules. Location matters in that particular spot. Our location is in Jupiter Farms, Jupiter, Florida. We have had our address in a couple of different areas that were more centrally located so that we were desirable appraisals through the proximity rule. I don't think that's a location answer that you would ever thought about would be affecting a business like that. So, but in a funny note, we live in Jupiter, Florida. We chose it, and every so often you get in front of the mayor of Jupiter, and the mayor of Jupiter, before he addresses any topic that he's standing at the podium, will sit there for 5 or 6 minutes and explain to everybody in the audience why Jupiter, Florida is the best place to live. And I happen to agree with him.
And going back with proximity, do you have a target market that you try to go for?
Well, there's some appraisal-rich areas, and it's cyclical as well as seasonal. There's a buying season within a 12-month cycle, and then you take a look at the whole cyclical nature of the real estate economy over the course of 3, 5, 10 years. Typically, a real estate boom lasts for about 3 years. We are now going through an unprecedented period of real estate appreciation off of an unprecedented period of real estate decline. We try to make sure we could address all the products that a bank may need. A large portion of the fill-in gaps that we have are the foreclosure market and the short sale market. They're still out there, and they still need to get appraised, and many realtors or real estate appraisers don't get themselves identified in that particular niche. You do need to be an FHA appraisal. You do need to know the cost of cures. Many times you walk into a home and there's a lot of damage, and you need to assemble a cost of how much to repair those damages, thus the cost to cure. And it's a good opportunity to take 10 or 12 appraisals throughout the course of the week and put a lot of these foreclosure sales in there. And they fit in nicely because there's never anybody in that home, and they're always on a lockbox, and you don't need to make the schedule, and you can squeeze in between your 10 o'clock and 12 o'clock. That answer your question on that one?
Yeah. Also, you understand who you're going for and who you're trying to sell to.
But we work with appraisal management company mostly, and the appraisal management companies, they want a good price and they want a good product, but mostly they want a timely product. They want that thing within 3 days or 5 to 7 days. And that's something that's typical in South Florida. And you can go in other markets around the United States and it's 3 weeks because there's such a shortage of appraisers. Okay? So, sometimes you market yourself as doing the difficult, complex properties. Sometimes you can market yourself, if you need equestrian done, I'm your man. And sometimes you make your name because you turn everything in 48 hours, which is something that's more important to the banks than actually getting a product that is full of the discussion and analysis that you would want in a complete appraisal report.
So it really has a lot of information in just putting in one report then. And in order to really stay relevant in this business, you need to have a quick turnover time.
It's very important. Unless you're doing well, here's how I describe it sometimes. We all take a look at these hurricane maps, okay? And these hurricane maps have these 57 models, however it may be, all with their little variants, and sometimes they're all going in the same position. And if every single little one of those spaghetti models is heading towards your general location, you're like, whoop, back up the car, let's get out of here. If you see that same spaghetti map and there are one going here and one going there, you're never really too concerned. What you're taking a look at is so many automated valuation models. Familiar with that would be Zillow. and everybody knows what their Zillow value is. It's not anything where you're sitting there have a human element on it, but it's a bunch of algorithms that they generate, and here's your value. Well, there's actually a ton of different valuation models that you can take a look at on the computer, and there's more that are personal to every single lender. So if you see a spaghetti map of all these valuation models, if all of them are going to one location, there's a lot of credibility. Say there's a disparity between 300,000 and 285. Well, that lender is going to be confident that the number is somewhere between that $15,000 range, which is quite acceptable. Sometimes you take a look at all these valuation models and you realize that one's saying it's worth 430 and another one is saying it's worth 190. There's no credibility in those models. Well, that's where appraisers come in. And if you can sell yourself as a person that provides enough analysis and discussion to make that uncredible numbers from the automated valuation into a credible number on that report, here's your number and here is why I'm supporting it. Some appraisers, they'll put a number on there and they're just going to say, you're going to have to trust me, this is exactly what it's worth and this is what we're doing. And there's some appraisers that will put that number down there, and you'll also express, well, here's why it's not worth 240, because these comparables are not similar in design and appeal. And here's why it's not worth 350, because these have a greater view amenity. Or let's talk about the quality of construction. These are wood framed and these are CBS construction, and this is worth an extra 10% based on a market reaction. Not cost of construction, but market reaction. And we're going to have to give a little bit more consideration due to the fact that this one over here has a better school district. Well, all these things matter, and if you're able to sit there and give them that sort of detailed analysis and discussion, you can make a living just based on the more challenging appraisals, the complex properties that people don't have, that the computers can't get their head around. There's always a need for that. Because the further and further we move forward, the less and less of the appraisal pie there's going to be. Because you could now get so much information on public record that they could plug in and have some level of credibility and confidence. When there's no confidence, that's when the appraisers, the boots on the ground guy, come in and says, hey, let's take these pictures. Oddly, one of the few sections of the appraisal market that is really growing is new home constructions 20 years ago. These people, they built their home 20 years ago. They have a fantastic loan to debt ratio. There's no reason why I should be in their house taking pictures and photos and verifying, but the home has never been on MLS. They have no idea what the inside of this home looks like because it's never been marketed. It's never shown up on MLS, so that particular domain can't be taken and put onto Zillow or Redfin or whatever it is. So automatically, the banks say, we need an appraisal. It's a raw deal because I've never been in one of those original construction homes from 20 years ago that don't have any public information besides what's square footage and roof and construction and room count. But I don't know how to jump in that particular market. But they're easy appraisals. They're easy product to put together for these people. There's not much complex about them, except it's a blind date for the lender. If I could capitalize on that, that would be some easy work. Because there's easy work and there's hard work out there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that goes with any kind of business. Mm-hmm. Now, as appraisers, is there a certain filing system you have to follow?
Well, we do need to generate a work file, and that work file is reflective of the intellectual process that we embarked on in order to solve the problem. The problem is, what's the value of that home? We need to take a look at the overall market area. We need to take a look at the comparables in the market area. With those comparables in the market area, we need to find out what's most similar and competing, or a similar substitute for the subject that we're appraising. As sometimes the bank has additional underwriting guidelines where they want comparables that have similar amenities such as pool, fireplace, similar site area. So all that diligence needs to be printed up and stuck into a file. And within that file, we also need something called a letter of engagement, which means that it's a small contract. We have 15, 20 contracts a week where they're engaging us to do an appraisal. We also need to know what kind of appraisal we're doing. In other words, do they want a full interior appraisal with that scope of the assignment, or do they just need a drive-by where we're taking a look at it from the exterior of the street? Why would they want that? Well, maybe they have a ton of information on public record about the interior already. So we need to make sure our filing system includes what kind of product they want. All of this put together, you can have a lot of file boxes in your closet, but you can take all that data and scan it and just have one digital file and take the rest of that paper and destroy it if you need to for space purposes. Now that particular file you need to keep for 5 years. Mostly everything, unless something is under some sort of court proceeding, and then you do want to keep it forever if that's the case. But and that's all put together through the Appraisal Foundation, through the uniform standards that are presented to us, and the state of Florida mostly covers exactly the way that the uniform standards presented to us. And at the beginning, you couldn't even use a digital file, a digital signature. Now you can use a digital signature, and now they say, okay, you can save your files digitally. And there's a lot of appraisers that don't use paper at all. They just construct their digital files as they go, and then there it is, and that's how they proceed. We rarely print up an appraisal, but we do have a hard copy, a digital copy of that appraisal with the final. And if we have any adjustments, any conditions that need to be satisfied for that appraisal, each copy of that appraisal needs to be reprinted. Like for instance, maybe somebody's going to drop off the borrower name. We need to reprint a whole appraisal. If somebody decides that they are going to adjust the sales price, we print a whole new appraisal digitally as we go.
Now, getting back to when you actually first started appraising, were there any kind of issues when you were starting up?
You mean to get the company rolling, or to after we got it rolling and we're moving forward?
Right now, just to get it rolling.
Just to get it rolling, you're working a job, you're trying to make a living, and you're also sitting in class in order to get the prerequisite 45 hours for the appraisal trainee license. It was just getting that trainee license and taking the test to become a trainee, and then getting what you needed, which was very minimal to do this business, which was a computer, a camera for the most part, access to the MLS and the forms as I described, which typically as a trainee you're working for a certified appraiser anyway, so that stuff is going to be pretty much provided for you. You had to have adequate transportation. The biggest thing we concerned ourselves with is we're going to be going from a nice corporate income to eating what you kill. And we were very frugal for a while, for about a year. And if we'd allowed ourselves more time, we would have taken it. But the economy was just so much opportunity in the real estate market when we became appraisers that we started stockpiling money away just in case we needed to live thin through the startup of this venture. When it started, we hit the ground running. We did some very good business right at the beginning. We marketed ourselves as Sunshine State Appraisals. We went out and shook hands and talked to people and tried grabbing a little bit of the pie that we could, and everybody responded very well that we met. If I met with 60 mortgage brokers in the beginning of my experience, we had 15 of them send us business within the first month. That was great return on the marketing investment. Oddly, Frappuccinos had just come out, and I bought Frappuccinos by the 4-foot stack, and I put them in the car, and as I would go from place to place, two-fisted Frappuccinos. People would run up and take a Frappuccino, start drinking them, and they remembered you. And if things ever got slow moving into the future, I would buy Frappuccinos and I would drop them off because, hey, you need a Frappuccino, you got to start writing some business so I can do some appraisals. And they were happy to see you, and it was quick, it was fantastic. The only thing you couldn't do is drink the Frappuccinos too, because at the end of the day, you're 12, 15 Frappuccinos into it, and you're like, I can't go to sleep. And that was a good part of my marketing pitch. I did have marketing experience from my prior employee with a furniture rental company, and just translated into a transfer of enthusiasm. And most of these people really didn't care whether or not I was totally competent in appraising. They just liked the fact that I walked into their management offices optimistic and full of energy, and that by the time I left, I transferred some of that enthusiasm to them, along with a little Frappuccino, and the phone started ringing, and it worked good. And one of the mistakes you can make is overmarket and get too much business and not have the operational base to handle all that business. And so at a certain point, I actually was holding on to too much business, so I started picking and choosing on who were the better companies that I was able to hang on to. And by that, I mean, there's some companies that were doing mortgage business at the time that was maybe less than ethical or predatory, or everything was in bad taste. And I got to pick and choose and go, you know what, I'm not doing business with you. I always say one of the reasons why I'm still in business is because I have had the opportunity to market well and get rid of the clients that were going to get you in trouble. The clients that were going to slow you down because all the issues that they brought in as being a mortgage company themselves, But that was a part of the beginning marketing process. We many times under-promised and over-delivered. There was opportunities when we put on that superhero cape and decided that we're not going to do anything that weekend because there was an emergency appraisal and somebody had a closing and they needed an appraisal, and they said, it's Friday, can you do it on Saturday, have it into us by Sunday? And we said, you bet. Those opportunities come around, you get to make a name for yourself. You got to remind them that you gave them that they gave you that opportunity, and you came through with flying colors, and you need to build on these moments. But they show up, and we always took them. An example is a company always had emergency appraisals. They weren't necessarily emergency appraisals, but what it was is if they got an appraisal assignment on Thursday or Friday, chances are it wasn't going to get seen till Monday or Tuesday, the physical inspection. Therefore, the appraisal wasn't going to be in until Wednesday, Thursday, which is a whole week, which didn't fit into their the pitch that they were giving to the banks who were the eventual end user for this particular product. And so they would pay emergency appraisal fees each month. For every appraisal. So for 2 years, every time the emergency appraisal came through, only because they didn't want to wait 2 days for the weekend, we'd accept it. And they were paying about $150 more. And we're like, all right. And then we started getting 2. And for 2 years, we were averaging 2 more additional emergency appraisals with the additional fee. And it was our best client. And then one day we had to be somewhere for the weekend. We couldn't say yes, and we said no. And apparently they found someone else to be their hero for the weekend's emergency appraisal. Because we never got another emergency appraisal again from them. And we're like, we weren't too devastated because at some point we were happy that we kind of got the weekends back a little bit. But, those are the opportunities that you realize, well, hey, why do we pay that mortgage off in 14 years instead of 22 years? Well, it was that one client with that one opportunity, with that extra fee. And you can't underestimate showing up and being that someone's superhero for that one, because there's more opportunities to show up like that, and that's really what they want. And I don't forget the fact that you got to say yes many times and figure out how to get it done later. You can't shoot yourself in the foot doing that, and I have stories of that. But when you're starting your business off, you don't have a choice. You got to jump on those opportunities.
You got to make sure you're continuing on and thriving, surviving.
Yeah.
Now, are there any current issues you have as appraising, or anything that devastated the business as a whole?
In 2018, because of the appraiser shortage nationally, not in South Florida, as I described, not in the specific market area that we're working through at Sunshine State Appraisals, they allowed for something called an appraisal waiver. And what the appraisal waiver said is that, hey, look at this. These people got a ton of equity. We don't really need an appraisal on this thing, do we? As the banks would say. And Congress said, sure. I don't know if it was Congress, but at some level, somebody said, sure. So, boom, here comes the appraisal waivers, which really took a large piece out of the overall market. When you take a look at all the new technology that's out there that the banks can gather and still get that level of confidence that they wanted to with an appraisal report, we're losing business that way. The pie is shrinking. One of the things that seems to have stayed at a good clip is appraising foreclosures, because there you're not necessarily taking a look at what the value is of the home, but you also need to calculate the deferred maintenance, cost of cures, as I previously discussed, and you can't do that with a computer. You can't do that, from looking at the outside of the home. You can't make those assumptions. So that market is still running pretty strong. Is the appraisal market shrinking because of what I just talked about before? It is. Is it going to blow up again the same way to 2008, and we're going to go back to everybody gets an appraisal no matter what? And there's a couple of lenders where, yeah, everybody gets an appraisal. They're not into the appraisal waiver thing. They are as diligent as they need to be, and sometimes if it's a jumbo loan, which is over $1 million, they will get 2 appraisals. All right. Something else that is, I could say, an opportunity on one end, but also taking away some of the field work on another, with the boots on the ground type of guys, which I try to refer to myself, is hybrid products. And these hybrid products they will get a unlicensed, a person that's not even an appraiser, to go to the subject property, take pictures of that subject property, go in the inside, photograph it, and take those photos and send them to the appraiser. Now, the person that went and took the photos may or may not have been a realtor. They may have paid him a very minimal fee. Sometimes it's a realtor that is only doing this for the benefit of possibly getting the listing moving forward. Okay? These are not refinances. These are mostly short sale type stuff. And some of it's just exterior. And they'll take these photos, they'll send them to the appraiser, and the appraiser, for a discounted fee also, will sit and do a desk product. These are called hybrid products because there's 2 different people that are providing the information. And instead of a full fee appraisal going out there, you now have 2 compartmentalized at lower fees. Are they still a good deal? I don't know how much liability the appraiser has, but it's shrinking up one portion of the market, which is the full appraisal, and it's growing the hybrid appraisal. And you can take a look at, a typical appraisal, maybe $375, and you're taking a look at the hybrid product that the realtor is getting is somewhere like $75 for a same opinion of value. Less work, but you still have the same intellectual process as far as coming out with that number.
Now, since you started, how has the industry changed then?
A lot more technology. I came in just after the cusp where you would sit there and take photographs and run to the photo hut and paste them in. You don't need to deliver these appraisals with a hard copy anymore. Most of it's a digital commuting of the file. We used to walk around with also big Macavia cameras, which, if you know what it is, great. Now we just have these little tiny digital things. You can take your photo, send it up to the cloud, import it right into your report. We have computers that we can take on site and do sketching programs as we go. The data collection is so much more simple. You have aerial photographs that you really didn't start looking at aerial photographs till 2008, 2009. Before, you just didn't have that ability. You were walking around, none of us looked at maps, we just punch it all in the GPS. The job has gotten a lot easier in those respects. On another respect, on a typical appraisal, you could expect 2,000 points of review, which means there's a lot of people that are looking at your product. At the beginning, it would be people that would just look at it, and if they had questions, they made questions, you gave them answers. Now, Fannie Mae is looking at it through computer processes. I will indicate that the water is on in a home 3 different ways. The reason being is because depending who's looking at it, when they're searching my appraisal report, they need a specific phrase to satisfy a specific request. One of them is the utilities were on. Another one is water was on, electric was on. Another one may describe the water being on a different way. Why? Because that box won't get checked off through their automated scan of the words in my report unless it's phrased a certain way. And sometimes when you get a letter of engagement that's 8 pages long, you're just going to put it all different ways and say it exactly as, that somebody's going to pick it up in the automated scanning word program that they have. A lot of people are checking out. One thing it changed a ton is these people, you walk through their home and they already have a preconceived notion of what their home is worth because they got Zillow, okay, or they have a realtor, which many of them would have before. But I used to have something called the Zillow Addendum, and what the Zillow Addendum was is I would put together a report supporting the opinion of value that I had. And sometimes I would have a paragraph disputing what Zillow said. Zillow said 245, and I think it's worth 205, and I will tell you why I think Zillow is using these comparables that are not similar competing. They appear to be similar competing, but they're not. But these all were made with regular windows, and they got a wood frame second floor, and all these have impact windows, and they have a concrete first and second level. And based on quality construction, it's more expensive, and the market reacts to it on the purchasing, and they're paying more for it, but they're all woven with the same neighborhood, built in different phases, and the computers and the automated values are not separating these salient features based on the home. So when you take a look at Zillow and why they're incorrect, it saves a lot of time in revisiting your report if you're proactively diffusing whatever their questions are. It doesn't matter. The first time you receive some comments about your appraisal product, it's all generated from the computer anyway, so you're going to end up answering the questions the second time anyway. The truth is nobody reads it till the second time around.
So you got to make sure they're always looking at it.
Yes. In other words, there's some things we put in 12-point, 18-point font to idiot proof for the reader. I wish I could be more professional than say idiot proof. But the truth is the banking industry expands and contracts, and so many times it expands with people that are 21, 22, 25 years old. No offense to 21, 22, 25-year-old folks, but you don't have the experience, and they tend to ask learning questions about your appraisal instead of actual questions that are relative to how does this affect the opinion of value.
Now, Sunshine State Appraisal as a whole, how has its growth been since for its inception?
We shot out of our beginning stages very well in say 2002, and I think we were relatively good until 2007, and of course in 2008 things slowed down very well. And one of the reasons why, in 2002 to 2005, anybody can make a good living, which we did. And going to 2005, 2006, at least in the South Florida market, you were starting to see some slowdown, some downturn. Money was not as available. There was a lot more product on the market for people to buy. So it became more of a buyer's market, and it slowed down. And in 6 and 7, you were starting to run into a lot of foreclosure work. Now, just a story on the beginnings, when I started marketing myself to a lot of these companies, a lot of them would ask, hey, would you do foreclosure work? Would you do REO work? And REO, I can't even spell it, right? But the fact that it's real estate owned property that the banks owned, and most of the time it was dirty, smelly work in bad areas and bad zip codes. And many appraisers were like, I don't need to do that. What I have is enough business over here. I don't need to do your foreclosure portfolio. Well, I said, yes, I'll take care of all that. If this is important to you, dear lender, just make sure you can do your best to keep the rest of my roster filled with work. And it worked out well. Well, as it turns out, when the market really started going south, I was on the top of many people's foreclosure, short sale, you name it, servicing list. So while other appraisers were sitting at home watching cartoons because in the afternoon because they didn't have any origination work, which was sales, or refinance work because the refinance work was just dried up, and all there was were foreclosure work, I was busy as I could be for about 2 years. When 2008 came, yeah, everybody was slow. There was just no business. I was averaging 4 appraisals a week at a totally discounted number, and that was probably 4 more than a lot of the other appraisers I know, only because I was at the top of the list of these foreclosure appraisers. It worked out pretty nice, and I'm pretty fortunate that I kind of stumbled into that. And even today, I got to say 20% of my business is some level of foreclosure. Some of it is reverse mortgages that have come to maturity. I don't really do reverse mortgage appraisals, but when the reverse mortgage comes to maturity, they got to put that home on the market. And what it means is the person that had the reverse mortgage died, right? And that's about 4 appraisals a month. And it's very easy work. And there's never anybody in there. And it's all on a key. They mail a key to you. And it's a lot easier than a lot of the other product that's out there. And it's all effective. Some of these decisions I made back in 2003 or 4 when I first started marketing myself. And I'm still on those exact same lists, getting that exact same little portion of the business that'll put you over the top on the income range. Just those little decisions, you never know when they're going to show up and give you the benefit of being able to afford that luxury package on that vehicle you just bought.
Now, what do you think the future of appraisal is going to look like?
Until things change in the economy, in the real housing market, it's going to start shrinking a little bit more and more and more every year. Until we have another issue where home values slide off the table. I don't think we're going to find issues like home values sliding off the table like 2008. That was a lot of different circumstances. We can get creative financing like that again, but even so, that takes a while for it to rear its ugly consequence. But as soon as we start running into a troubled economy and the housing goes, the first thing you're going to see is money supply gets limited. The refi and the sales market starts to slow. You may see upticks in the foreclosure market. As long as you could offset your business with that, you're pretty good. Once it all hits the fan again, you'll see them amp up their diligence on who needs the appraisals. There's not going to be any more appraisal waivers. They're not going to just fall in love with the automatic valuation models. You need about 1% of the homes that are valued as in good condition when you open the door and you find out that it's been trashed and there's holes in the wall and the kitchen's gone, and you're like, well, we need to put live eyes on these products. And that's just 1 or 2% of the sales if they show up in that kind of condition. Because you're taking a look at, that eats into your profit. That's, a home that was bought for $300 that now is being sold for, $190 because it can't be sold on a market that allows for a loan. Most of those damaged homes are now going to be bought cash, which brings the price lower. And you want to avoid those mistakes as a lender, and you only can do that if you have somebody that's going in and doing the full complement of a full appraisal report.
And do you have any advice for anybody that wants to do a startup or starting up a business?
In the appraisal industry?
In appraisal or just in general? Just any good business advice to know?
I gotta say, I love to stand in front of everybody and say that I work smart. And I know that the really successful people work smarter than they do work harder. I worked harder than I did smart. I haven't got to say that when opportunities came down the pike, I made the most of these opportunities. I could have jumped on technology a little quicker to improve my overall product. But when opportunities come and you're not going to be making as much money as you wanted to based on dealing with that opportunity, chalk up that lower profitability on it, or even sometimes the fact that you're not making profit on all of it, to marketing. Because there's a lot of things that I have done where I didn't make any more money than I should have, or actually lost a minimal amount of money. Never took a bath on it, but I've lost the opportunity to make more money just to do something in good taste, just to help somebody out with their deal. And sometimes it blew up in my face. And more than most, if I followed up on it, it became a wonderful marketing opportunity that I was able to grow my business on. I've always said, if you chase after the money, you may get it, you may not. Just work on building your reputation, and if you build your reputation, the money comes. It normally does, unless you're sitting there making some mistakes that I can't even fathom. When it comes to working for one guy that's going to pay you the most, and you're not going to learn very much, or you're going to be working for another individual that's going to say, I'm going to pay you this wage right here, but you look at that guy and you know he's a leader, and he's going to educate you, and he's going to be your mentor, and you're going to only spend 2-3 years with him, and then you're going to be the smarter one in the group because you work with that one, even though he paid a lower wage. Consider whether or not you want to, take that higher short-term wage, or work with that individual that is going to be able to teach you what you really need to know further down the road to become more successful. I never really jumped after the money. The money has come. You get paid for what you do or what you know, and you get paid a lot more for what you know than what you do sometimes. I do take a look at the amount of times I have tripped over $1 trying to pick up a nickel, and you get smarter as you go, and when you say, well, I can pick up that $1 and I can pick up that nickel too, and it just really boils down to what's your reputation and what did you do to follow the cycle or the season. We got fortunate. We lived in South Florida, and we worked in a real estate market that was booming for another 3 years, for another 4 years. And then after the real estate boom was there, I benefited from the foreclosure market. And in 2008, I was doing something else for a little while just to make a mortgage. Okay, 2008, 9, and 10, there was no lending going on. They didn't need appraisers. And the only thing you did was, the foreclosure market. When it started hitting again, we were ready to start going, which we kept ourselves in the game. As far as advice on going through those down years, you got to recognize that it's changing. Most of the time, you look in the rearview mirror and you're like, "Oh, that was obvious," but can you look over the horizon and figure it out? You really got to always be anticipating it. They're so predictable based on looking at the roadmap from a 50,000 foot view. And you could say, oh, we should have seen it coming. And you look over here. Yeah, it's never going to be that same percolating. In this seasonal market of appraisal, my goal is to stay busy 50 weeks out of a 52-week year. And I do that by expanding my scope of knowledge so I can expand the amount of products that I'm able to provide, being different types of homes for different appraisals. As I said, waterfront, equestrian. You can throw geodesic dome in there for unique type of design and appeal. If you really fill up your overall knowledge base, you can be busy 50 weeks out of the year. The people that don't, they're busy 30 weeks out of the year, 25 weeks out of the year. They ride the real estate season for the year. Remember at the beginning of this question, I was talking about the whole cycle for 3 years. Now I'm talking about the cycle within a 12-month period. And you just always willing to say yes, and you got to have the guts to say no when you're pretty sure that it's a dog with fleas and it's going to bite you at the end. And most of the time, if that's what you think, it will, and you'll sit there and kick yourself in the butt with it. And you got to avoid those too, but that's a whole different level of experience. Walk away experience, I call it. Just walk away from it. And the world doesn't end sometimes when you just walk away from it. Sometimes they come back and they have a new position, and it's a better position.
Well, Mr. Proscopo, thank you for letting me ask you all these questions. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.